We have learned about some of the challenges faced by entrepreneurs. In our next talk, we will shine a different light on the topic and look from the perspective of investors. Our next speaker, Inga Deakin, has a bachelor's from Cambridge University and a PhD from Oxford University. And we all sort of know the answer to this question, but Inga, having been through both universities, which one do you think is better? There's only one correct answer. I'm kidding, of course. So Inga represents Imperial Innovations and is an associate in the healthcare ventures team specializing in investments across medical devices, therapeutics, diagnostics, and healthcare. She is currently a board observer for Psychology Online and Puridify, and she has worked previously in business development and technology transfer at the London Bioscience Innovation Centre. Please give a warm Cambridge welcome to Inga.
For that introduction. I guess the answer to the question is I always win the boat race, so I'm very happy about that. Thank you for that introduction and for inviting me to talk today. I'm going to follow on from the speeches and talks we've had already with a couple of examples about efficient investing and also about our investments. So this is quite a broad topic for a conference, and I was thinking about use of resources, future resource abundance, and I'm kind of coming at it from two angles. So one, from our perspective in terms of investing, so our efficiency in investments, and also from the perspective of noticing that a number of our portfolio companies are focused on their core business of improving efficiency of resources across life science and healthcare. So I'm just going to start by introducing Imperial Innovations. So we, as it says on the screen, we create, build, and invest in pioneering technologies developed from outstanding academic research. And we started at Imperial College, building companies and supporting technology developed there. And we've expanded to cover the Golden Triangle, so Cambridge, Oxford, and London. We maintain a technology pipeline agreement, so we remain the technology transfer office for Imperial College, and that's one of our core business units. In the ventures team, we're investing across that geography. And since our IPO in 2006, we've raised just less than £350 million to invest in that area. And as you can see, some other statistics, lots of spin-outs, we've attracted a lot more investment into those companies over and above the money that we've put in. And we've currently got just less than 170 million to invest. So we're in a good position to help build the sector. So as I said, we're focused around this Golden Triangle, and these are some examples of companies that we've invested in that space. Our head office is in London. We also have an office in Cambridge on the Babraham site, and spend a lot of time in this area. So I don't need to tell you that there's some of the top world-class universities in this area. But what's really important for us as well is the network of the other corporate R&D and development companies in these areas. So not just the big corporates, although they're very important, such as the AstraZenecas moving down to Cambridge, for example, but also this entrepreneurial community and network of entrepreneurs, advisors, mentors, support, expertise from R&D and manufacturing. All of that's really important. So it's not just about the universities. Our geographical focus is all about those people and their teams and networks, which has been mentioned previously and I think will be a recurring theme. So we're deeply integrated in those networks, and that's why we retain that focus. And that's a really important part of our strategy. So just a note on our business model. So we are a publicly listed company, so we don't have a fund in a traditional venture sort of style. All that 350 million that we've raised so far has gone onto our balance sheet. So in theory, we can be flexible in how much we invest and at what stage. But in practice, this is the general model of most of the companies in our portfolio. So at the beginning, in the startup phase, we typically invest less than £1 million. And when appropriate, and if the company's doing well and continuing to grow, we can see that investment through and deploy a lot more capital into those companies. So up to, as it says here, up to 25 million is kind of our historical record. In practice, a lot will fall somewhere in between those two. But that's a really important part of our approach and that kind of long-term view of developing technologies, especially when they start very early. So what limits our resource for doing lots of earlier stage investments is our team. So the healthcare ventures team is about 6 or 7 people. We're really actively involved in the companies that we invest in. We'll sit on the board and we want to support and bring that network and help the company. So we just can't do lots and lots of seed investments. But what we hope is that some of them will grow and we can see that company through the journey. This is really important for us because it means we don't have to manage 100 different investments each. But it's also really important for the company not having to go back to investors all the time at different stages, and it really reduces that fundraising risk and time, and we'd rather have that in place at the beginning so we can scale and go through the journey with the company. So, there we go. So that's just a bit of a summary about Imperial Innovations, and I think some of the resources that we think about, thinking about resource efficiency, it's very close to our hearts. Obviously the capital that we've got is very precious. We need to be careful how we deploy that, being very lean and efficient, and I'm sure all of you have had lots of talks about those sorts of business models. Particularly in these sort of science-focused companies, we need to make sure we're not underfunding the company, but the company is really focused on the key technical milestones, the things they need to prove to get acceptance in the market. Given that most of these are very high-tech companies, the first stage is usually a technical rollout rather than a sort of direct-to-market approach. Management and talent, as I've talked about, is absolutely critical, and that's a resource that we are very careful with. We work very closely with people who want to maintain those relationships, and often the same people will work on multiple companies within our portfolio. Our team is a limiting factor, as I've mentioned before. So we manage that by focusing on this geography, focusing on the types of companies that we invest in, those generally with some IP, probably with a relationship with some of the universities, and targeting a big market size, et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of some of the resources that we think about from the investment perspective. Happy to take lots of questions about that at the end if anyone wants to talk about that more. But I'm going to continue to give now 2 examples from our portfolio. So as I mentioned at the beginning, thinking about the efficiency of our own investing, but now 2 examples of companies where they are developing products and technologies to improve efficiency in life sciences and another in healthcare. So this is an example, Puridify. The company has got a novel material for purification. So this is in downstream manufacturing. So for the antibodies, the biologics that Mike mentioned, these expensive next generation drugs, there's a process where you make the drugs and then you have to purify them from the other bits of the cells or other things that they've been made from. And this is generally done with a chromatography. So essentially you have a pot where the feed stream goes through, the product of interest binds to the matrix within that pot and filtration system. And what Puridify have developed is a novel material that goes into that purification step. So if you think of this downstream purification, the productivity of that purification, you can think of as a function of the flow rate of the feed stream coming through the purification chamber, and also the binding capacity, so how well the product of interest binds to the material so that you can extract it, the useful antibodies and other biotherapeutics. And this, I'm not sure quite how well you can see, but the Puridify material is shown on the right. It's a fibrous material, which has got really high surface area and lots of gaps in the material, so the flow rate is very high. And this really overcomes a lot of the limitations of the current materials that are used. Examples here on the left, so bead resins. You can probably see, I don't know if you can see, but the pore sizes are much smaller. So in this instance, you have to put the substance in, sits in the pot for quite a long time, while the products diffuse into the beads. So it's got relatively slow flow rate. There are alternatives with membranes, and these have got a relatively low binding capacity, although a higher flow rate. And what Puridify has got is a combination of both of those things, which can massively increase productivity and the speed and the amount of resource that you need to purify these expensive drugs. Now, downstream purification is a big part of the cost of these drugs, so this has got massive implications for improving productivity. And it's a relatively easy switch, because this is, you can imagine, an industrial process, and it's just one part that you can put in this type of material as opposed to the other. It's a simple switch. So we're hoping with this technology, there's going to be a really significant improvement in efficiency of production of these really expensive drugs, which are going to bankrupt the healthcare system. And so this is a really exciting technology we're working on. From our perspective, so we invested with SR1, which is the GSK venture arm, and UCL Business, the technology transfer office from UCL, last year. This was after the company had raised they had won £100,000 in the One Start competition, which hopefully some people are familiar with. And the company has also raised a significant amount of money from Innovate UK, which is non-dilutive grant funding, really appropriate for this sort of company, which is an R&D stage at this point. So in this way, the money that we've put in has leveraged in a lot of other sources of resource funding and has been very efficient for us. The company's still got strong links with the UCL academic group where it came from, so again, making sure you don't cut yourself off just because this is a commercial setting. It's still very much in the research phase and development of the commercial product, so really important to maintain that link. It's a small team, this isn't the whole team, but a selection, and that's, again, appropriate for this stage. You don't need to go and build a huge commercial team to go and sell the product when the product's not ready yet, so just from our perspective. And it's located at the Stevenage Biocatalyst. This is an incubator in Stevenage, conveniently between Cambridge and London. So it's close to their collaborators, it's close to GSK they're working with. It's a really helpful place for them to be for this company. So that's the example from the life science side of a company that's developing a product to improve efficiency. And then on the healthcare side, I've got a company here that I'm going to talk about called IESO Digital Health, previously called Psychology Online. This is based in Cambridge, and it's delivering evidence-based mental health therapy online. That's the one sentence. And this is a bit different to Zesty because this is actually delivering the care, managing the care, taking responsibility for clinical outcomes. There's a pool of therapists who are used to treat the patients that are coming in. So it's a slightly different position, but still part of that ecosystem that I think is really, really important. So this is discrete one-to-one therapy, real time with a therapist in a typed conversation, and the typing is important. I'll come back to that. So currently, if you're going to go and visit a psychotherapist, if you're depressed or anxious, you need to book an appointment. It's really painful, and it's usually an appointment for face-to-face therapy where you sit down with the therapist in a room that's booked in a clinic at a certain time, usually during office hours. So this is really inconvenient for lots of people, especially where if you're depressed or anxious, getting out and about, taking time off work, there's a lot of stigma. So a patient might have to take every afternoon off for a number of weeks to go and receive therapy. It's putting a lot of people off getting the therapy they would benefit from. So this inconvenience factor limits people's access to the therapy. And there's also obviously a finite pool of therapists. So they spend a lot of time driving around between clinics, going into the room, getting set up. You know, if you can deliver this therapy digitally, that's clearly a lot more efficient for the therapists. So with IESO, you can book an appointment and at a time that's convenient for you, and the location is convenient for you because you can just log in. A lot of people do it at work or at home. That's both for the therapist's benefit and for the patient's benefit, particularly for this group of patients that are depressed or anxious and probably, sometimes struggle to get out of the house. So this is just an analysis of some of the recent appointments. There's just over 6,500 appointments to just show how this is panning out, and an example of why the inconvenience is difficult for people. So here you can see most of the appointments during the week are happening in the first 2 days of the week, probably because that's when you kind of do your life admin. It's not so fun. Wouldn't be helpful opening the clinic over the weekend because people clearly don't want treatment at that time. And you can see the times of the appointments are most commonly in the early evening, so sort of 6 to 9 o'clock. And it's likely that lots of the patients are logging in perhaps at work, staying on for an extra hour. Nobody knows that they're having therapy. There's no stigma. You can just log in, or coming home in the comfort of their own home and logging in and having this session. So I think this really shows that the current system is not really what the patients are looking for, and actually receiving care digitally as well as organising it and coordinating it is a really big opportunity to improve healthcare, use of resources in healthcare. So as a result of some of this flexibility and convenience and ease of access to therapy, IESO has shown that the DNA rate, which is a did not attend, as in the patient just doesn't show up for the appointment, is very significantly reduced, and only about 11% of appointments patients aren't showing up for, as in they're not logging in. Whereas for face-to-face, the national average of patients not turning up is about 25%, which must be really frustrating for the therapist, let alone for the patient not benefiting. So just that in itself, delivering the care, is really significant improvement in the efficiency of the system. And even more so, 50% of sessions on average, it's on average 50% fewer sessions are required with this system than with face-to-face therapy, partly because they don't show up as often in face-to-face therapy, but we think particularly because it's written. So you log in, you have an appointment, there's someone in the other computer, you're typing to each other, discussing the problems with the same therapy as face-to-face, but just written down. So from the patient perspective, they write things down, which helps you remember, process your thoughts. A lot of the therapy is about organizing why you're feeling these ways. And also, the patients open up. So one of the first things the therapists always say is they're amazed that they just tell them all of their problems quite early, because you've got that distance between you, which is very powerful. Equally, on the therapist side, because we have the full transcripts of every discussion, they can talk about those patients they're struggling with their supervisors. They get a lot of support, and all of this is kind of contributing to that massive improvement in efficiency. This is from the same York Health Economics group, I think, who are very active in this space, from a recent analysis, who said that if ISA was rolled out across 50% of the market in the UK, it could save the NHS over £100 million every year. So it's a really significant improvement in efficiency. Well, nearly finished. And also, because it's text-based, there is a huge amount of data there, and this is where the company's got a lot of exciting work going on to improve further the efficiency. So, for example, you could help the therapist talk them through, give suggested questions, help stratify the patients. There's a lot of exciting work going on there. And the model is that it's delivered free via the NHS, so it's available in Cambridge. It's also available in many other places across the UK, and there is clearly a lot of international expansion opportunity for this type of company as well. So we're really excited about both Purify and ISO in our portfolio. I think they're good examples of where resource abundance is driving exciting business models and new technologies across life sciences and drug development, and in the healthcare delivery side as well. So thank you very much.